Hey everybody, it's Jason with Parallel Reality coming back with you today with an article from Townhall.com dated July 17th, and it's a very cheerful one that says, can we get out of this without a civil war? And of course, I jest, because I certainly hope that's the case, and it doesn't come to something like that, but let's see what Kurt Schlichter here has to say. Good follow on X, so go follow him. It says, America is in crisis, with the left battling and the ascendant right, a clash of visions between a socialist nightmare in which America becomes either a feudal, feral combination of California and a communist college campus, or we remake it into something like the glorious golden country it once was. How does this all end? Leftists in America, and the Democrats are a leftist party that is eagerly embracing admitted communists, seem to be under the impression that normal patriotic Americans have no right to engage in their own self-governance. Kind of the entire thing this country was founded on. Says that's unsustainable. Says we're not giving up our self-determination. The question is whether America resolves this peacefully, as we should, or whether the Democrats spark another civil war, something I write about in my new novel, American Apocalypse, the Second American Civil War, released on July 17th. So go buy his book. That's what he wants you to do. But let's keep going with the article. It says it's time to face the question forthrightly. After all, the last time we patriots tried to deprive Democrats of their servile class, they chose war. I think you know which war he's referring to. Says we're depriving them of another now, and they are losing their minds. Right now, they are choosing obstruction, having half-wit, left-leaning federal judges, they weren't confirming them because they were legal geniuses, essentially declare that anything Donald Trump does is unlawful. Legally speaking, his actions are not unlawful. They're not even close to being unlawful, and the Supreme Court has been swatting these judicial ankle-biters down left and right. But there are hints that leftist frustration at not being able to force us to submit via lawfare is pushing them toward violence. We know because they say so, and yeah, if they tell you who they are, believe them. Says the Democrat base is demanding more radicalism in the face of their political losses, and I've seen that too, and that's, like, you guys don't think you're radical enough already? Like, geez. Says we've seen the polls that say over half of them think it's morally okay to murder the president. It is not. Do not do that. Says their street thug catspaws are shooting at cops, enforcing our democratically enacted immigration laws, as well as murdering citizens. Says we keep hearing about our democracy, capital O, capital D, but apparently democracy is not ours. It's theirs to do with as they choose. It's not a democracy if you pass a law but you're not allowed to enforce it. It's not a democracy if some hand-picked hack judge in some blue jurisdiction tells you that the president cannot do the things any other president does. It says what's the end game? How does this stop? Because what can't go on will not go on, and it is becoming increasingly untenable for half of America, the patriotic, normal half, to be denied the ability to enact its policies when it has lawfully won power in fair and free elections. Of course, this assumes that we're doing the no questioning the legitimacy of an election thing. You need a program to keep up with the narrative du jour because it changes so quickly. Miraculously, those changes are always for what's the short-term benefit of the left. But the bottom line is the left does not accept the legitimacy of half of America that elected Trump and Republican majorities, and that's a recipe for disaster. And as this article hinted at, jumping in with some commentary here, I really think, I know Tim Pool always says civil war, and it's kind of always said, what's it going to be about? He predicted maybe it was going to be about, this is a couple years ago, after Roe v. Wade was overturned, that it was going to be about that. I've always said it's about exactly what this article's about. And what it's said at the beginning is the illegal immigration thing, and that their people are being deported. They're servile class. If a civil war starts, it's going to be because of that. And it's such a stupid thing to have a civil war about, is the side that decides to start the war is the side that's going, no, illegals should be allowed to be here and just, suck the life out of the country and leech off of us and just no consequences. But anyway, back to the article. It says, again, how does this end? Do we do this forever? Is every single action that we patriots enact after theoretically winning power through elections to be obstructed, denied, and voided? That's unsustainable. But the left shows no intention of getting back to something remotely normal, where they recognize that people who disagree with them have a right to power when they legitimately win it. Besides the greed and entitlement that leads them to covet power, they have filled up that space that normal people fill with faith, family, and the flag with their bizarre cultural Marxist pseudo-religion. Disagreement isn't merely disagreement, a crucial component of a functioning republic, but is, instead, hearsay. You can't compromise with that, or not hearsay, heresy, I'm sorry. You can't compromise with that, and if you can't compromise, you can't have anything like a democracy. In their ideology, conservatives aren't just wrong, you are actively evil. You've heard it yourself. Trump is Hitler, And where do you go when Trump is Hitler? You go to cheering when people try to kill him. And if they had managed to kill him, do you think there wouldn't have been celebrations in streets in Blue America? Of course there would have been. And I think if that actually did happen, then we'd probably be in something of a civil war right now about that. So thank God that didn't happen. It says, it's easy to get blackpilled about the future, but we need to keep in mind that we are currently fighting our way through this with remarkable success. We're winning. We're winning in the courts. We're winning on the streets as we deport every single illegal alien, and we're winning on the economy. The challenge is that the left is going to get more desperate as we put wins on the scoreboard. How desperate? Very. To them, their ideology is a religion, they are religious fanatics, and we are witches to be burned. We've already seen murders. Palestinians, that's a nice word for that, Palestinians killed 2 people last weekend and 2 others in Washington, D.C. before that. The violence is not going to stop. Gavin Newsom, Karen Bass, and other Democrats have celebrated and coyly encouraged the riots against federal agents deporting illegal aliens. In New York City and Minneapolis, Democrats want to elect foreign communists who somehow have American citizenship because we've stupidly given citizenship to every third world radical who shows up at our door. Democrat politicians amp up the anger quotient and are, at least tacitly if not overtly, supporting the kind of violence we saw during the low-key insurgency in the 60s and 70s, an insurgency we failed to suppress brutally enough because scumbags like terrorist Bill Ayers, who I think is actually a professor at Northwestern right now, says are residing in the height of academia as opposed to in Supermax. Says, however, I don't think we'll make that mistake next time. No, if there is a next time, as I discuss in American Apocalypse, there's a show for his book, our anger will require accountability. The question is whether there will be a next time. Will there be a violence to resolve the seemingly resolvable status quo? Got tongue-tied there, sorry. Will it be low-grade terrorism? I think we're kind of seeing that already, and it probably will get worse. It says, will there be another civil war? It's not a crazy question. It's sadly not insane to talk about it anymore. It might have been wacko 20 years ago, but things have changed. The Democrats not only embrace a platform that despises America, but they despise Americans and consider them morally unfit and unworthy of having a voice in their own government. You and I are not human to them. We're kulaks, wreckers, and looters, literal Nazis, and therefore unworthy not only of the right to participate in our own governance, but of basic civil rights like the right to speak freely, to worship freely, and, heaven forbid, to own guns, and you should most definitely buy guns and ammunition to lawfully defend yourself, your family, your community, and your Constitution. That's good advice. It says the leftists don't have power now, but they may have power in the future. Things change. Voters can be stupid. I know because I sometimes live in California. I think he's actually from California. It says, but there's a very real possibility that a combination of their arrogance, stupidity, and downright evil will lead to the kind of catastrophe that I write about in American Apocalypse. Says, I'm already prepared for the stupid people who will fulminate that by writing this book. I somehow want our country to tear itself apart. Those people are liars. I saw a country that tore itself apart when I was stationed in Kosovo, and I'm desperate to show that violence is not the answer. The Constitution is. And I should say that Kurt Schlichter, I think, was a colonel in, I want to say the Army, but I could be wrong, but I remember he was a colonel. Because I'm not going to let the left and their garbage fellow travelers stop me from warning about what the left intends to do. American Apocalypse includes a bitter, femmy blurb from Bill Kristol regarding the People's Republic books as a badge of honor. That some of us, in our frustration, are too cavalier about the consequences of civil conflict. We need to understand that even if our side wins, which I think it would for various reasons that American Apocalypse describes, he's showing his book pretty hard here, says we're not going to emerge on the other side with anything like the America we grew up with. It's going to be poor and authoritarian. It can't be otherwise. Says you can't have millions of dead, make no mistake, a real civil war, as opposed to the kind of Weatherman SLA low-key insurgency of 50 years ago, would destroy the infrastructure and systems that keep people alive. You would see death and destruction on a scale that would boggle your imagination and should turn your stomach. But you would also see a firm resolve on the part of normal Americans. They say that the truly scary man is the one who wants to be left alone, and that applies to normal Americans. American Apocalypse discusses this in detail. You can't have a two-tier system where one side invokes tyranny and violence and the other side simply takes it. That is not in the cards. It says again, I'm not black-pilled. I don't think we're going to devolve into violence, but I'm also not naive enough to believe it can't happen. It can, and it's something we must avoid at all costs. But that doesn't mean we roll over. That doesn't mean we submit. That doesn't mean we give up our right to run our own country and our own lives. As the re-election of Donald Trump was a spectacular moment of hope. In the last 6 months, the Trump administration has done things we didn't think were possible simply by ignoring the ruling class's cries and the regime media's lies. There's been resistance, and there's going to be more. We must face it forthrightly and with steel in our spines. There are far too many soft people on our side who would simply give up because of sad sob stories and manufactured narratives. It's not the way. The way is to use the power we've legitimately obtained in conformance with the Constitution to win the struggle. The alternative, another civil war, will have a victor, but it won't have any winners. And, as American Apocalypse describes, the people who start such a war through their malice and stupidity would find themselves yearning for someone as peaceful and benign as Donald Trump. Yeah, because people have said a lot that if there's going to be another civil war, that there's going to be an American Franco that rises, and that's not necessarily going to be a good thing, but that is the end of the article. What do you think about this? Do you think there's going to be another civil war? Chime in below. Please like, share, and subscribe. I will talk to you soon.